Hello, everyone. My name is Jeffrey Walton. I'm editor-in-chief of Chain Drug Review and Mass Market Retailers. Welcome to our video forum. Today, we have the second in our series of programs that relate to the NACDS annual meeting. Last week, we talked with Rick Keys, the outgoing NACDS chairman. And today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Steve Anderson, president and CEO of NACDS. Steve, welcome.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Good to see you.
Okay, good to see you as always. You joined NACDS in 2007, and since that time, you promoted the idea of retail pharmacy as the face of neighborhood healthcare. How close is the industry to achieving that goal and having a wide perception of itself as just that?
Well, yeah, we've been on a journey for 14 years. And I think when President Trump last March 13th, a little more than a year ago, declared a national emergency under the Stafford Act to fight COVID, I think that was really an inflection day for pharmacy. In the Rose Garden, as you may recall, at the White House, when he made that declaration, we had representatives from NACDS member companies, and they committed to the president and to the country to do COVID testing. And that has taken us on a journey to where we are now, where we are the centerpiece of the vaccination effort against COVID throughout the entire country. And it's been an interesting journey. I mean, when I got here 14 years ago, we couldn't vaccinate. We had to fight at the state level to allow our member companies to do vaccinations. And if you think of where we've gone from there to where we are now, it looked like an orderly process, but it wasn't, like all public policy is. But, I think that it's amazing what our members have done. It's been said that rarely do people get to make history. And I think our member companies have been making history throughout the year. They're courageous and dedicated staff team members that they have within their stores and in the pharmacy have done an amazing job. And they're making history like never before. That pharmacy is the face of neighborhood healthcare. We launched that. And that's been our mantra really for the last 14 years. And you and I have talked in the past, when I got here, I went to the Hill and people, members of Congress just didn't think we were part of the healthcare system. Thought that we were retailers, just happened to sell pharmaceutical products in addition to other things. And now there's no doubt about that. But the success that we've had as an association and our members have had, and those are not two distinct entities. We wouldn't have an NACDS without our members. Our member companies have been working basically throughout the decades in order to get us to where we were. You just don't be able to, have the trust of the American people to do vaccines overnight. And it's extraordinary what they did. So I think that was an inflection point for the industry. And, we've achieved a lot. When people use that word achievement, they think it's an end of a journey, but we're really in the start of this journey in terms of what pharmacy can do even more, because everybody in the world, including the United States, they're talking about their vaccinations, where they got vaccinated at. And many times, more often than not, it's in one of our member company stores. So I think it's extraordinary. And I think there are great, great years ahead for pharmacy as a result of what our members are doing now as the face of neighborhood healthcare.
Mm-hmm. Steve, you mentioned that several of your board members were in the Rose Garden with President Trump. Maybe you can talk about what the engagement of people at that level of your member companies means to the association and the work you do.
It means everything. The success that we've had over the years is attributed to the board of directors. I've been doing association work for a long time. I'm even chair-elect of the Association of Associations, the American Society of Association Executives. And for 4 decades, I've studied what makes associations work and where they fail. And NACDS board is really the reason for our success. When you're elected to our board, and it's a small board. It's a select group that are members of our board. They have a fiduciary responsibility to the association. They have to check their competitive differences at the door, which, as you know, can be very intense in our industry. and do what's good for the association and do what's good for the country. And it's interesting. We've got a fascinating board. We've got large companies, small companies, medium companies. We got grocery, drug, mass. They're spread out throughout the entire country. They have different business models. And that's changed a lot over the years, where, you know, they were basically dispensing medications and now they have different business models. But every board meeting that I've been in for the last 14 years, they have always put the patient first. We talk about our pro-pharmacy and pro-patient policy agenda, but they always put the patient first and what's good for the industry, and they check those competitive differences at the door. So we have very senior people in our member companies that are part of that. They're engaged, and I have to say the discussions over the past year have been fascinating in terms of how they have adapted and what they're doing as individual companies, more importantly, what they're doing collectively as an industry through NACDS.
It's been impressive, I must say, what they've done in terms of keeping their staff members safe and healthy, while at the same time meeting a lot of needs for a lot of people. And none more now than with the COVID immunization. Recently, NACDS announced some staff changes, and you talked about the one team approach. What's involved in that, and how will the team address NACDS priorities?
I think this is really crucial, and another reason I think for our success. I've had the opportunity to work at several associations, and some of those have been turned around, some have not. But you know, when I came to NACDS, the board had directed me as part of the search to make adjustments in NACDS and really have a laser type focus in everything we do. And the goal of that is to knock down silos. We started a program probably 10 years ago, and we spent a lot of time. It's called Strength Finders. I don't know if some of our member companies have used it, but we did an analytical study of all of our staff members and, you know, what their strengths are, and really focused on the strengths. And then we had a consultant come in and work with us in terms of how we were approaching our jobs and how we were dealing with everybody. And, you know, the conclusion of that is everybody in the organization, everybody, not just in senior positions, has certain strengths.
Maybe you could talk about what your top priorities are, the association's top priorities are in terms of COVID and then beyond COVID, once we get past this situation.
Yeah, our priority now is to make sure that the allocation is really strong to pharmacies. You know, we have a supply issue, which everybody recognizes, but, you know, now that we have, you know, I have friends that have had the J&J, got the J&J vaccination in our member company stores. So we're seeing that, and Pfizer and Moderna were always out there before, but we're ready to go in terms of what we need to do. And our members are ready to go, but we're working to increase the allocation on COVID. A lot of these issues, you know, we're going to be, you know, you and I are probably going to be immunized for COVID for a long, long time, as will other Americans. And once that develops, our members will be there because they've had tremendous experience. But at the same time, you know, on a related issue, we are really focused now in 21 on the sustainability and viability of pharmacies. We have pharmacies that are going out of business in the thousands each year because of financial pressures on reimbursement and DIR and other issues. And we can't do all those wonderful things that the American people are seeing now in their pharmacies if they don't have a pharmacy in their community. And that is really going to be our mission moving forward. And as I say, we're, you know, as you know, Jim Collins, the business guru and consultant, comes to a lot of meetings. He talks about the flywheel. And I think our flywheel is that we work with our member companies to develop a public policy environment so they can do things for the American people. We communicate that to certain constituencies that allow us to do even more in terms of services for the American people. To me, that's our flywheel. And it's been picking up steam this year. You know, you talk about the face of neighborhood healthcare. I guess it was in 2019 that our board went in to see then Secretary of Health and Human Services, Alex Azar, And he looked at our board, he goes, I got one mission in this job, and that's to put pharmacy at the center of healthcare.
Mhm.
And we had not heard that before so directly by the
Mhm.
senior regulatory official that has an impact on our industry. And I think that tells you a lot about what the extraordinary amount of work that our members are doing and the
Mhm.
good that they're doing on behalf of the American people. So it's really fascinating to see this journey that we've been on and where we are right now.
Mhm. You mentioned Alex Azar, who of course was a member of the Trump administration. Now we have the Biden administration. What is the political climate like in DC, and what are the prospects for issues important to NACDS and its members?
I'll take that in two parts. One, I'll talk about the legislative process here in Washington that you and I have talked. We'll get that out of the way early and get probably the
Okay.
good news later. But the events of January 6th has had a profound impact on this city and on Congress. And you thought it was partisan before. It's extremely partisan at a really high level, though.
Mhm.
When we get down to issues like drug pricing that we're going to be working on a lot this year and DIR, those are bipartisan issues. When we talk about the sustainability and viability of pharmacy, as I just mentioned, it's really important that we have bipartisan support, and we do have that. So, don't get too wrapped up in all the headlines you read, but you have to drill deep down into our niche issues that have an impact. I was very active, and NACDS was very active with the Trump administration, Operation Warp Speed, and I was on the COVID-19 vaccine consultation panel with, I guess there were 40 of us by the time we were done. And, we had a seat at the table, and we were being kept apprised of what was going on in the development of the vaccine, which is miraculous in terms of what the companies did to produce the vaccines, but it was our job to get the shots in the arms. And we had a seat at the table. We had an election just before the vaccines became fully available. But, I have to say the Biden administration really hit the ground running when they came in. They have had people who have been in the White House before. Jeff Zients and Andy Slavitt is an example, who are key people in the White House on the COVID team. We're working on the rollout of the Affordable Care Act during the Obama administration. I mean, they were hitting the ground running.
Mhm.
There's been, I think they've done a really, really good job. The door's been open to us, our board, when we had our board fly in March. We went in, virtually we went in and met with the White House team, and the feedback was really good. So yeah, I'm very encouraged, and we're doing great things. I mean, our members are doing extraordinary things for the American people. We ran this ad that we could do 100 billion shots in 30 days if we're given the vaccine.
Mhm.
And that resonated well. And, we have President Biden who are using expressions like there's a pharmacy within 5 miles of 90% of the American people. Or,
Mhm.
Sanjay Gupta on CNN is saying, gee, he understands that pharmacies can do 100 million shots in 30 days. So we're having an impact. And it's the credit goes where the credit's due. And that's with our member companies in terms of what they're doing in their teams. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Last time we talked, we discussed NACDS efforts to raise the profile of the industry, including the TV ads that you alluded to earlier. Have you been able to gauge the impact of that campaign so far in changing perceptions about pharmacy?
We have. We run a pretty sophisticated operation as it relates to our public policy work. We do a lot of polling. We were one of the first association clients of a company called Morning Consult that you now see cited as, probably one of the most, trusted and prominent polls in the country right now. We poll a lot of our issues. We spend a lot of time on how we package the messaging in terms of what we want to get done, and the numbers are through the roof.
Mhm.
In terms of the trust that people have towards our pharmacies and other things. So we play to that focus, which is, reinforces what the American people already think. And you're seeing it now with the vaccination. So we ran our RISE ad, as we called it, in April, just to say that, pharmacies have always been there during times of crisis, and we're there now during COVID. And that set what I would call the perceptional framework of what we have done. We did one on the flu vaccine as an example. We've got another one to encourage the American people to get vaccinated once the supply increases. So we've got that ready to go, and it's very helpful. And we also do a lot of earned media.
Mhm.
I've been doing association work for a while, and I've learned that a lot of associations will do communications that kind of resonates what they do on policy, like sending out press releases. You have to shape the image of the industry. We don't have to shape it. It's already there.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, the way the American people feel about pharmacy. And that's our approach in terms of what we do. That image is so strong and everything radiates from what our members are doing. So those ads are one part of what we do in terms of telling that story that I talked about earlier in our flywheel.
Mhm.
And it's been very successful in terms of the policy success that we've had
Mhm.
over the years.
Mhm.
Yep.
You mentioned before that you had the virtual fly-in in March. You're going to have a virtual annual meeting at the end of April. How do you expect that event to unfold?
I think it's going to be good. I've been on, I told you I was chair-elect of the American Society of Association Executives. They had a virtual meeting in August when, they were new, and they're difficult to do, but it's a great way to keep our members engaged. And NACDS has a reputation of having extraordinary meetings, and I think this will be a virtual meeting that will far surpass what others have seen. And we've got a great message to tell. We've got great speakers lined up. It's hard to sit in front of another computer, a year into this, but I think it's going to be great. What I'm looking forward to is once we can meet in person.
Mhm.
And, we have great meetings. We're a regional chain meeting. We have our annual meeting. We have the Total Store Expo. We have our week in New York in December. And this industry is based on relationships. I don't need to tell you that,
Mhm.
because you're very good at it. But it there's one thing we always took for granted, maybe, was going to meetings and those relationships and bumping into somebody in the hallway of a hotel,
Mhm.
and being in meetings, and making their business appointments, which, as people come out of the hotel at the annual meeting, they've had what, 40, 50 meetings
Mhm.
during the course of the conference. And
Mhm.
I was looking at, maybe I was reminiscing a little bit. I pulled up some of our NACDS TV spot,
Mhm.
stories that we do on our meetings, and
Mhm.
it was our last meeting at the Breakers, where we're supposed to be in April. And one of our members said NACDS is all about relationships, 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 and that translates into business, business, business.
Very
And as
true.
we're all struggling to have those relationships once again, I have no doubt that our meetings in 2022 are going to be really, really strong as a result. So
Mhm.
I'm very excited about the prospect, but we're keeping our members engaged, such as the virtual annual meeting.
Mhm.
We did it with regional. We've had our NACDS live events that you've seen,
Mhm.
that are really good, really, really good. This one on 5G and technology, blew everybody's mind, that
Mhm.
we just had recently. So yeah, it's exciting, but you don't just build those relationships, and you don't have that image of our meetings overnight. It's decades of work.
Mhm.
Most of those decades have been done by Jim Whitman and his team.
Mhm.
And I have no doubt that we're going to have a really, really good virtual annual meeting, and you can scale it. You can get more people,
Yeah.
which is, I guess, one of the advantages, of having a
Mhm.
virtual meeting.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I can attest to the value of the shows you guys put on. Let me ask you one final question,
Yeah.
Steve. At the NACDS annual meeting, Colleen Lindholz
Mhm.
will succeed Rick Keys as your chairman.
Yep.
Maybe you could comment a little bit on the job Rick's done. I think arguably it's the most difficult challenge any NACDS chairman has faced because of COVID over the last year.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, there's been an opportunity to make history, and the COVID development, the vaccine development, and the deployment of that is the largest undertaking we have ever taken in this country domestically. And we just happen to have the right leader at the right time whenever we change our chairs at NECDS. And Rick has been extraordinary. I mean, just extraordinary in terms of his leadership. I mean, I'm on, he's probably ready to become the past chairman because I'm on the phone with him every day. And look out, Colleen. But no, Rick, I just can't say more words of praise about him and the entire board. And our executive committee meets at least every month, and they are fully engaged because we have a lot to talk about. As you might guess. So, you know, Rick and the board have been tremendous. Colleen is just going to be a great leader. She's been, she started with Kroger 26 years ago as a pharmacist. She's gone through various levels of leadership at Kroger, and she's just a terrific leader. And there's no one I've met that's more passionate about pharmacy than Colleen. And I've seen her interact with her staff teams, and they love her. And I think she's going to be absolutely terrific. You know, we all have different business models within our member companies, as I mentioned. And, you know, Kroger is really, you know, focused on using everything they have at their disposal for the health and wellness of the American people, whether it's pharmacy, grocery, their clinics, they have nutritionists, they have dietitians. You know, that's the future of I think, retail for our members. And Colleen is, she's an extraordinary leader. She's done do a great job. She's been highly engaged in what we've done this year and while she's been on the board. So we're looking forward to her joining us. You know, one of the great strengths of NACDS too, if you go through the chairs, you're still on the board if you're still in the industry. So we have, you know, an amazing deep bench of board members that have been great chairs of NACDS, as you know, and they're still engaged with us. And, you know, they know what worked and what didn't. You know, we don't mind taking a few risks and trying something. If it doesn't work, we'll just, you know, learn from that and go on and do some other things. And so you have that continuity as well. And that's really the strength of going back to the earlier question you have. That is the strength of the organization, is the board and the volunteer leadership we have in the officers as well.
Okay. Well, Steve, thank you for your time and sharing your insights, and good luck with the annual meeting. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate everything you're doing. Thanks.